Golden, late-afternoon sun glazed Willow Creek's main street in honeylight as 6-year-old Sophie Caldwell walked beside Officer Ryan Caldwell, swinging her ice cream spoon like a tiny baton. Mid-hum, her feet locked. She squeezed his sleeve so hard his watch bit him. "Daddy, can I buy that police dog?" she whispered. Ryan smiled, expecting a plush toy. Then he followed her gaze. Across the street, beneath a flickering lamp, a German shepherd sat chained to iron. Not resting, enduring. Ribs showed through filthy fur. One eye was cloudy. His paws quivered. A rain-warped cardboard sign leaned against his chest. $1. Injured police. Dog cars rolled by. Shoppers stepped around him like litter. No one noticed the collar had been cut, replaced by a hardware store chain. Ryan's breath vanished. Those eyes had saved him in a warehouse raid. Those eyes had read his hand signals in darkness. Those eyes had disappeared 6 months ago behind a transport van after the captain said, "Routine vet stop." Thunder never came back. The department stamped him lost. The file was sealed. Ryan was warned to drop it. Now, Thunder sat in daylight, priced for $1. Sophie's voice shook. He looked scared. Ryan took one step closer. Thunder lifted his head a fraction. Recognition sparked. Then his body went rigid. Not at Ryan, past him. Toward the alley where a black SUV idled with lights off. A shape shifted behind tinted glass. Thunder's ears flattened in terror, not pain. Ryan understood. Thunder hadn't escaped. He had been delivered. And the second Ryan touched that chain, someone would know he'd found what they buried. Ice cream dripped down Sophie's wrist. She clutched his hand. "Please, Daddy." Behind them, a door clicked shut. Ryan turned slowly, and the badge hanging from the stranger's belt made his stomach drop again tonight. The late afternoon air in Willow Creek smelled of warm pine and waffle cones. Ryan Caldwell had promised Sophie a date day after her spelling test, and she treated it like a tiny oath. She walked beside him with a vanilla cone in one hand and a cup of rainbow sprinkles in the other, humming the tune her teacher played during cleanup time. Every few steps, she did a little spin on the sidewalk, letting the sun catch her braids. Ryan matched her pace, letting the town's calm seep into him. The courthouse clock chimed 4. Neighbors waved from porches, and an old country song drifted from a hardware store radio. To anyone watching, it was a simple father-daughter stroll, the kind Ryan had once believed was guaranteed if you wore a badge and kept your head down. Sophie talked with her mouth full, proud of how she'd spelled butterfly without peeking. She asked why squirrels ran in zigzags and whether police dogs had birthdays. Ryan answered each question, smiling even when his mind tried to wander to reports, waiting at home. He wanted this hour to belong to her, not the department. They reached the block where sidewalks widened and windows turned glossy. Sunlight stretched long shadows across the pavement. Sophie's humming returned, quiet. Ryan watched her hand swing in rhythm, watched her nose wrinkle whenever ice cream threatened to drip. He felt lucky. Then she stopped as if a string had snapped inside her. Her song cut off mid-note. Her feet planted. The sprinkles cup tilted, and a few bright dots bounced on the concrete. Ryan glanced down, about to tease her for daydreaming, when her small hand clamped around his sleeve with surprising strength. "Daddy," she said, voice suddenly tiny. "Can I buy that police dog?" Ryan turned with a half-laugh already forming. There was a toy shop across the street, and he pictured a stuffed shepherd in a window. But Sophie wasn't looking at any store. Her finger pointed toward the old lamp-post near the alley between the pharmacy and the pawn shop. At first, he saw only the post and a chain looped around it. Then his eyes adjusted, and the world narrowed to a single shape beneath the light. A German shepherd sat there, head low, body slumped in a way that wasn't rest. Fur clung in dirty mats, patches were missing along his flank. Ribs rose like knuckles under tight skin. A cheap metal chain dug into his neck where a collar should have been. Beside him, crooked cardboard leaned against the curb. $1. Injured police dog. Ryan felt his chest seize, the chime, the music, Sophie's breathing. Everything slipped under the roar of blood in his ears. His pulse kicked like it was trying to sprint without him. For a second his legs forgot how to move. He forced a step. The dog lifted his head just enough for Ryan to see the left eye cloudy and the right one clear, searching. A fresh scar cut across the shoulder. The paws were scraped raw, nails cracked. The smell of infection hung on him. Whoever had kept him like this hadn't wanted him healthy, only alive enough to suffer. Sophie tugged again. "He's a real police dog, right? The sign says so. We can help him, Daddy." Ryan's mouth opened, but his voice vanished. His brain ran a vicious little equation. Police dog meant department property. Chained dog meant somebody abandoned him. Abandoned K9 meant a story that never got told. He moved closer, hands lifting the way he used to approach frightened animals on calls. "Hey there, buddy," he whispered. The shepherd's ears twitched, not with relief, but with alarm. His gaze met Ryan's for one breath, and recognition hit Ryan so hard his stomach dropped. Thunder. The name arrived before logic did. Flashes cracked behind his eyelids. A warehouse raid where Thunder slid under pallets to flush a suspect. A rainy night when Thunder pulled a lost toddler from a creek bank. Quiet evenings when the dog leaned into Ryan's knee, reading him better than any person. Thunder didn't just work with him. He understood him. 6 months ago, Thunder had gone on a scheduled vet trip with the transport unit. The captain called it routine, checkup before a county training exchange. Ryan had watched the van doors shut, had scratched Thunder's head through the bars and promised back tomorrow. Tomorrow became a week, then a report. Lost in transport, unknown location, case closed. Ryan fought that word closed until his throat burned. He posted flyers. He drove back roads at dawn. He checked shelters, farms, roadside ditches. At first he was pitied, then warned. "Sometimes dogs vanish," they said. "Let it go, Caldwell." But you don't let go of a partner who took a bullet meant for you. Now that partner sat under a lamp like a discarded tool. Sophie didn't know any of that. She only saw a hurting animal. She stepped closer. "Hi, doggy," she said softly. "I'm Sophie. My dad's a policeman. We can take you home." Thunder flinched as if her voice cut him. His tail didn't move. His body held a tension that screamed of months spent bracing for pain. Ryan crouched, careful, the way he'd taught rookies. His fingers hovered near the chain. It wasn't a department issue. The clasp had been cinched tight enough to leave red grooves in Thunder's neck. Ryan's jaw clenched. "Sweetheart," he managed, keeping calm for her. "Let me talk to him first, okay? But Daddy, he needs us now." She wiped her cheek with her sticky wrist. "Please." Ryan nodded, eyes still on the dog. He studied Thunder's jaw set hard, his head angled slightly left as if listening, the way his gaze kept flicking toward the alley. That wasn't fear of people. That was fear of someone specific. Ryan followed the glance. The alley held only shadow, a dumpster, and collapsed boxes. Nothing moved. Still, Thunder stared that way, unblinking. A cold thread slid down Ryan's spine. If Thunder was here, someone dragged him here, and if someone dragged him here, they either wanted him gone or wanted him found. Both options felt like traps. Ryan rose slowly, shifting to keep Sophie half behind him without thinking. People on the sidewalk kept strolling, laughing, living their ordinary Friday. None of them saw what Ryan saw. Sophie looked up at him, waiting. Ryan's mind replayed their bond like a reel. He remembered Thunder nudging Sophie's stroller when she was a baby, guarding her by instinct. He remembered the dog's reluctance the night before the vet trip, the way Thunder had pressed into him as if sensing the lie in routine. Ryan had ignored that unease then. He wouldn't ignore it now. Thunder released a low, shaky breath. Not a growl, not a whine, something between, like a warning, wrapped in exhaustion. You found me, but you're not safe. Ryan looked down at Sophie, ice cream melting, eyes pleading, and knew there was no walking away. Not from his daughter's heart, and not from the partner who had already given everything. He took a slow breath, set his jaw, and stepped toward the chain. Ryan dropped to one knee on the sun-warmed sidewalk, careful not to startle Thunder or scare Sophie. Up close, the dog looked smaller, not because his frame had shrunk, but because hunger had hollowed him out. His coat, once glossy black and tan, was dulled into rough clumps that smelled of rainwater and old antiseptic. Ryan's breath hitched as he reached out slowly, palm down, letting Thunder see every inch of movement the way they had practiced 1,000 times. "Hey, partner," he murmured. Thunder didn't lean in. He didn't lick. He only blinked once, heavy, like even that cost effort. Ryan let his fingers hover beside the chain. The metal links were cheap, hardware store grade, rubbed raw where they met skin. Each time Thunder shifted, the chain bit deeper, carving bright red grooves into furless flesh. Ryan's throat tightened. A department collar would never sit like this. Not on any dog, not on Thunder. Sophie crouched beside him, tiny sneakers inches from the dog's paws. "Is he okay now, Daddy? Why is he tied like that? Did he do something bad?" "No, sweetheart," Ryan said, voice low. "He didn't do anything bad." He slid 2 fingers under the chain to test slack. There was almost none. The dog flinched at the touch, not from surprise, but from expectation of pain. Ryan froze, then softened his hand, stroking just below Thunder's jaw. The skin there was bruised purple under sparse fur. He could feel the ridges of healed abrasions that ran in a ring, proof the chain had been tight for a long time. Not a day, not a week. Months. Ryan swallowed hard and examined the rest of him the way a medic checks a wounded friend. The shoulder scar was jagged, too fresh to be the old bullet wound. It crossed a patch where Thunder's service tattoo should have been. Someone had shaved that area, then cut or scraped until the ink was gone. The edges were uneven, infected where scabs had been torn away. Ryan's hands shook. "Daddy, that looks like when I fell off my bike," Sophie whispered. "But mine got better fast. Why didn't he go to the doctor?" Ryan stared at the scar, then at the clouded eye. The eye wasn't from age or accident. The surrounding tissue was swollen, as if he'd been struck repeatedly. A dog that was simply lost wouldn't show that pattern. A lost dog might be thin, dirty, scared. This was different. This was designed. He moved along Thunder's ribs. Each bone was a sharp bar under skin. The belly was tucked so hard it looked glued to his spine. Near the flank, patches of fur had been burned away, leaving speckled pink skin and blister scars. Ryan knew the smell of electrical burns from house fires. He knew cigarette marks from domestic calls, from people who hurt what couldn't fight, back. His stomach twisted, rage rising like bile. Sophie peered closer, brow pinched. Did somebody hurt him on purpose? Why would anyone hurt a police dog? He helps people. Ryan couldn't answer. If he opened his mouth, what came out wouldn't be safe for a 6-year-old to hear. He only shook his head, fighting to keep his face steady. Thunder's ears drooped in that defeated way K-9s never wore on duty. He wasn't just injured, he was ashamed, as if he'd failed his job by surviving this. Ryan checked the paws. Pads were split, raw at the edges, with little stones embedded like he'd been forced to walk on gravel for miles. The nails were chipped down to the quick. Along the back leg, a tight line of scar tissue ran parallel to bone, the kind left by restraints. He had seen that on seized fighting dogs, rope burns that come from being tied for hours, knees locked, unable to sit. He had never thought he would see it on Thunder. A car rolled past. Laughter drifted from the cafe. The world stayed normal while Ryan's insides cracked open. He pictured Thunder in a dark place, chained to concrete, food just out of reach, water rationed, hands coming in only to punish. The thought made his vision blur. Thunder, he whispered again, using the name softly like a key. At the sound, Thunder's head lifted a fraction. For one heartbeat, the old spark flickered behind the clear eye, then faltered. He tried to thump his tail, failed, and let it fall limp. The effort alone seemed to tire him. Ryan felt something tear inside his chest. "I'm here," Ryan said, more to himself than to the dog. "I'm here now." Sophie reached out with a cautious hand. Ryan started to stop her, then saw how gently she moved, like she was offering a secret. Her fingertips brushed Thunder's cheek. He didn't pull away. A slow breath escaped him, the first sign of trust Ryan had seen. "See?" Sophie said, voice hopeful. "He likes us." Ryan nodded, but his eyes stayed on the wounds. Every mark lined up into a story. Tight chain burns around the neck. Restraint scars on legs. Shaved badge spot deliberately erased. Starvation beyond accidental neglect. This wasn't the randomness of tragedy. This was someone trying to break a hero and make sure no one could prove who he used to be. Ryan's jaw clenched so hard it ached. He thought of the sealed file, the captain's cold smile, the warning to stop asking questions. He thought of the transport van, the paperwork that never added up. He thought of nights he'd sat at the kitchen table, Sophie asleep on his shoulder, whispering to his wife that something was wrong. She had said, "Maybe they're hiding something, Rye." He'd wanted to believe the department was still family. Thunder's defeated gaze said otherwise. Sophie looked between them. "Daddy, are you mad? You look mad." "I am," he admitted softly, but not at him. Thunder blinked again, slow and tired. His head sagged, then he forced it up, as if refusing to collapse in front of them. Even broken, he was trying to protect. Ryan felt pride and grief collide. He wiped the back of his wrist across his eyes before Sophie could see the wet. "We're going to get you help," he promised, voice shaking. "We're going to fix this." Thunder's clear eye locked on his. There was no bark, no whine, just that look that had always meant understanding. Yet beneath it lay a warning so deep Ryan could almost hear it. "Don't trust them." A breeze stirred the cardboard sign. The dollar price fluttered like a cruel joke. Ryan's hands curled into fists, then relaxed so he wouldn't scare the dog. He inhaled, steadying himself, and reached for the clasp. Behind Thunder's left ear, Ryan spotted a thin puncture scar, the size of a needle. Sedative, transport, not an accident. The pieces clicked, and his fear hardened into resolve. Sophie whispered, "Is he coming home with us?" Ryan looked at her, then back at Thunder and nodded. "Yes, and we're not stopping until we know who did this." If this broke your heart even a little, keep watching, because the truth is darker than you think. Ryan kept his hand on Thunder's neck, feeling heat under scabbed skin, and the touch yanked him backward through time. Before the chain and the lamppost, there had been a different afternoon years earlier, when Thunder first trotted into the County K-9 training yard. He was all legs and confidence, ears high, tail like a banner. The handler who brought him said, "He's got fire. Try to keep up." Ryan laughed, crouched, and offered a fist. Thunder bumped it once, then sat, as if they'd already agreed on everything that mattered. Their first week together was a blur of drills, sweat, and small victories. Thunder learned hand signals faster than any dog Ryan had seen. He could read a shoulder tilt, a breath held too long, a hesitation in Ryan's step. In return, Ryan learned Thunder's rhythm, how he searched corners with a chess player's patience, how his bark changed when a suspect was close, how he checked back to make sure Ryan was still there. By the end of training, the sergeant signed their papers and called them a matched set. On weekends, they trained in empty school halls, Thunder skimming lockers for scent while Ryan timed him. They celebrated each find with a quiet forehead touch and shared water bottle. The partnership proved itself on the street fast. The night of the Pine Hollow car chase started with a stolen pickup tearing past a traffic stop. Ryan and Thunder were in the cruiser behind it seconds later, siren slicing the humid air. The driver swerved through back roads, headlights bouncing off pine trunks. When the truck finally fishtailed into a ditch, the suspect bolted into the woods. Ryan unclipped the leash, whispered one word, and Thunder shot forward. Branches snapped, then a yelp, then silence. Ryan found Thunder planted over a man face down in leaves, teeth bared but controlled, waiting for the cuffing signal. The suspect went without a fight, staring at the dog like he'd seen a ghost. A month later came the warehouse rescue that turned them into local legends. A call about armed men holed up in an abandoned textile building sounded routine, until the radio crackled with a panicked voice. 2 patrol officers pinned inside after an ambush. Ryan and Thunder arrived to smoke seeping from broken windows and bullets popping against brick. The entry team hesitated at the loading bay, unsure if the suspects had explosives. Thunder whined once, low and impatient. Ryan knelt, pressed his forehead to Thunder's and sent him in. Inside, Thunder led him past busted looms and hanging wires to a storage room where one wounded officer lay behind crates, bleeding but alive. Thunder planted himself between the man and the hallway, body rigid, warning any attacker. Ryan dragged the officer out inch by inch, Thunder backing with them, never turning his head. When they cleared the doorway, a suspect burst from the shadows with a knife raised. Thunder lunged before Ryan even lifted his rifle. The blade caught Thunder along the shoulder, ripping fur and skin, but Thunder slammed the man to the ground and held him there until the team swarmed in. Ryan pressed gauze against the wound, whispering, "Stay with me," while Thunder kept his eyes on Ryan's face, not the blood. After that, the whole department treated Thunder like a co-worker. Detectives brought him jerky. Dispatchers asked for Thunder luck on hard days. The captain grumbled that the dog had better attendance than half the squad. More than once, Ryan walked into roll call to hear someone joke, "If Caldwell's ever taken hostage, just negotiate with Thunder. He understands him better than people." Ryan would shrug, but deep down he knew it was true. Thunder could tell the difference between Ryan's tired and Ryan's angry, between his calm and his fear. The dog came alive when Ryan was steady, and grew wary when Ryan wasn't. They moved like one mind split into 2 bodies. Then came the routine vet visit. It was an ordinary Tuesday, bright and humid. Ryan had just finished a morning drill with Thunder when the transport officer drove up with a clipboard. "County wants updated shots and dental scans," he said. Quick stop at the contracted clinic, then he's back by evening. Ryan frowned. Thunder had been cleared 2 weeks before. Still, orders were orders. Thunder hopped into the van without protest, but at the door he paused and looked back. His ears pinned slightly, the way they did when he sensed trouble. Ryan scratched the spot between them and said, "See you after dinner." The van door shut. The engine pulled away. Evening came. No Thunder. Ryan called the clinic. They said no dog had arrived. He called transport. They said paperwork showed delivery. He called the captain. The captain said, "We're on it. Go home." By midnight, Ryan was driving the highway, scanning shoulders with his high beams, imagining a crash. Any accident that made sense. None did. The next day, a short email landed in his inbox. K9 Thunder, status unknown, presumed lost in transport. Investigation ongoing. Do not contact media. Ryan read it 3 times, waiting for the second page that never appeared. He stormed into the captain's office. The captain didn't look up from his coffee. "Dogs get misplaced," he said. "Don't make this a crusade." The casualness felt like a slap. Thunder wasn't a misplaced file, he was family. Ryan tore the county apart anyway. He printed flyers with Thunder's photo in full harness and stapled them to grocery boards, gas stations, church doors. He walked creek beds at dawn, calling Thunder's name until his voice went raw. He checked shelters in 3 counties, then 5, bringing treats, showing the bullet scar to anyone who might recognize a hero. Sophie asked where Thunder was. Ryan said, "He's on a big job, sweetie," and hated the lie. At night he sat on the porch, listening for paws he knew by heart. He drove to farmhouses that kept working dogs, asking to check barns and pens. He visited the riverbank where Thunder loved to swim, leaving a chewed tennis ball on the sand like a breadcrumb. Every time a radio call mentioned a stray shepherd, his heart leapt, then fell when the description didn't match. Some nights he barely slept either. Weeks slid into months. Leads dried up. Co-workers stopped meeting his eyes. A friend in dispatch warned him quietly, "They're routing your calls away from internal affairs." Another buddy said the file had been sealed under operations security. Ryan left voicemails at every clinic the unit used. None called back. The chief finally pulled him aside and said, "You're making waves you don't understand. Let it go before it costs you your badge." Ryan went home that night, opened the kennel door that still smelled like Thunder, and sank to the floor. He told himself Thunder had to be alive somewhere. Thunder wouldn't quit. Thunder would find a way home. Yet every day without a bark made hope thinner. So when Ryan knelt on Willow Creek's sidewalk and saw those haunted eyes again, the old reel slammed into place. Glory, loyalty, sacrifice, then a van door shutting and a lie stamped official. The past wasn't gone. It was sitting in front of him, starving, scarred, and still trying to stand. And whoever had stolen Thunder hadn't expected Ryan to keep searching this long. Sophie didn't wait for permission. While Ryan was still trapped in memories, she slid out from behind his shoulder and walked toward Thunder with the slow bravery only children seem to find. Her cone had melted into a sticky mess, so she set it on the curb like an offering and wiped her palms on her pink dress. Then she crouched at a respectful distance, eyes level with the dogs. "Hi," she said, as if greeting a shy classmate. "I'm Sophie. You're safe with us, okay?" Thunder's clear eye tracked her, wary but curious. His body stayed tight, every muscle braced for the next hurt. Yet he didn't recoil. Sophie noticed the chain, the raw neck, the tremble that made his ribs jump. Her lip quivered. She swallowed the way her mother had taught her to when she wanted to be strong. My dad says police dogs are heroes, she continued. He told me you help people when they're scared. I get scared too sometimes, like when thunder is loud at night. But Dad holds my hand and it gets smaller. She held out her own hand now, palm open. You can hold mine if you want. Ryan's breath caught. He started to stop her, then saw her calm face. She wasn't rushing, wasn't squealing, wasn't trying to hug. She was offering. He let her be. Sophie kept breathing slow, like she'd practiced today. Thunder's nose lifted to taste the air. The motion was slow, as if his neck ached. He sniffed once, then again, drawing in the scent of shampoo, vanilla, and childhood. His ears twitched toward her voice. A faint whine rose, then died. Sophie waited, patient as a sunrise. "It's okay," she whispered. "I won't hurt you." Her hand hovered inches from his muzzle. Thunder's nose touched her fingertips for a heartbeat. He jerked back, then leaned in again when nothing bad happened. Sophie smiled, small and steady. She let him sniff until his breathing eased. Only then did she slide her fingers along his cheek, feather light. Thunder froze. Then, for the first time since Ryan had seen him on that lamppost, his tail moved. Not a wag, not a thump, just a tiny, uncertain twitch, like a door cracking open in a storm. Sophie gasped, delighted but quiet. "Vase? You remember how to be happy?" Ryan felt his eyes sting. He turned his face, pretending to scan the street, but the lump in his throat wouldn't obey orders. He had seen Thunder face down armed men without flinching, but never seen him look this lost. And he'd never seen a child stitch a broken spirit with nothing but kindness. Sophie shifted closer, careful to keep her knees on the warm pavement instead of pressing against him. She put her hand on his chest, right where his heartbeat tapped faintly under bone. "You don't have to be brave right now. I'll be brave for you." Her voice shook, then steadied. "Mom says when someone's hurt, we sit with them. So I'm sitting with you." Thunder lowered his head until it rested on her knee. The contact was shy, like he was asking permission even in exhaustion. Sophie didn't move away. She stroked behind his ear, slow and smooth. Thunder's eyelids fluttered. A sigh leaked out, long and fragile. Another tail twitch followed, then a faint lean into her touch. Ryan watched, stunned by the simple miracle. The dog who had guarded him in fire and gunsmoke was being guarded now by a 6-year-old with sprinkles on her dress. Something in Ryan's chest softened its grip on rage and made room for gratitude. A woman passing with grocery bags slowed. "Oh, honey," she said to Sophie, "be careful. That dog looks mean." Sophie looked up. "He's not mean, he's sad. There's a difference." The woman blinked, then walked on, embarrassed. Ryan almost smiled through tears. Thunder looked at Ryan again. The fear in his eye was still there, but beneath it was something older. Trust. Not trust in the street or the badge that had failed him. Trust in Ryan. And now, somehow, trust in Sophie, too. Sophie whispered, "What's your name?" "The sign says police dog, but that's not a name." She tilted her head. "Do you like names with big sounds?" "I know one. Thunder. I like that word." At the sound, Thunder's ears moved forward. Sophie didn't know. She had guessed the one word that mattered. "That's right," Ryan said hoarsely. "His name is Thunder." Sophie's face lit up. "I knew it. He feels like thunder, but gentle thunder, like when rain helps flowers." She leaned closer, letting her forehead touch his for a second, then pulled back so he wouldn't feel trapped. "Thunder, we're taking you home. You can sleep in my room. I have a blanket with stars." Thunder's breath huffed against her hand. A thin lick touched her knuckles, quick and hesitant, then another. Sophie giggled. wiping her hand on her dress like it was treasure. "You're a good boy." Ryan's heart broke and healed at once. He had spent months searching for Thunder with anger as fuel. He hadn't understood that hope could also be strength. Sophie was showing him. He reached down and ran a gentle hand along Thunder's back. The dog didn't flinch this time. He pressed his head harder into Sophie's knee, as if anchoring himself to her. Ryan glanced toward the alley again, still half expecting a shadow to move. But the loudest thing in the world right now was a child's steady breathing, and a dog learning to breathe with her. Sophie looked up at her dad. "Daddy, he's really tired. Can we take the chain off now? It looks like it hurts him." Ryan nodded. "We will, I promise." She wiped more tears away, then smiled through them. "He chose us, Daddy. Did you see his tail? He chose us." Ryan swallowed. "Yeah, baby, I saw." Thunder let out a low rumble, not a threat, more like a memory stirring in his chest. Sophie didn't startle. She kept petting, slow and sure. The rumble melted into another sigh, and his shoulders sank, as if he'd been carrying a weight too long. Ryan knew the road ahead might be dangerous, that someone had tried to bury Thunder and could return. Yet, looking at Sophie and Thunder, together, he realized the fight wasn't only about justice. It was about restoring what cruel people tried to steal: the right to be safe, the right to be loved, the right to come home. Sophie leaned in and whispered into Thunder's ear, "We won't leave you." Then she glanced at Ryan with a seriousness too big for her face. "Dad, you always tell me heroes don't get left behind, so we can't leave him behind." Ryan nodded. "We won't." Thunder's clear eye half closed, his head still on her knee. For the first time that day, he looked less like a survivor waiting for the next blow, and more like a dog remembering what it meant to belong. If you ever believed a child's love can heal what adults broke, don't stop now. The worst moment is coming. Sophie didn't wait for her father to decide. While Ryan stood half frozen, eyes locked on the scars he couldn't unsee, she slipped from behind his leg and walked toward the chained German shepherd with a calm that felt bigger than her 6 years. Her ice cream was melting down her wrist, but she set the cone on the curb like a small gift and wiped her sticky palm on her dress. Then she crouched a few feet away, keeping her voice low, as if the town's noise might hurt him. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm Sophie. Are you okay?" Thunder's clear eye tracked her without lifting his head. His body was a bundle of tight muscle and bone, ready for a hit that never came. Sophie noticed the way the chain cut into his neck, the way his ribs jumped with each shiver, the way his paws trembled on the hot concrete. She swallowed, blinked hard, and tried again. "My dad is a police officer," she went on, looking at the dog as if he understood every word. "He says police dogs are brave. They help people when people are scared. I get scared too sometimes, like when storms bang on my window, but Dad holds my hand and it helps." She lifted her small hand now, palm open, fingers relaxed. "You can hold mine if you want." Ryan's breath caught behind her. Every cell in him wanted to pull her back, to shield her from whatever this dog had lived through. But Sophie wasn't rushing. She wasn't squealing or grabbing. She was offering a choice. He let her be. Thunder's nose lifted, slow and cautious. It took effort, and Ryan saw it in the tiny tremor of his jaw. The dog sniffed once, then again, catching the scent of sugar, shampoo, and something gentler than any command. His ears twitched toward her voice. Sophie stayed perfectly still, giving him time the way her teacher gave shy kids time to answer. "It's okay," she whispered. "I won't hurt you." Her hand hovered inches from his muzzle. Thunder leaned forward by a hair and touched her fingertips with his nose. He startled at the contact, pulling back, then crept in again when nothing bad followed. Sophie smiled, not wide, not loud, just enough to say she understood. She let him smell her as long as he needed. When his breathing eased, she brushed her fingers along his cheek. Feather light. Thunder froze, waiting for pain. None came. A breath slipped out of him, shaky and long, and his tail stirred. It wasn't a wag, not even a thump, just a tiny twitch, like a door cracking open after months locked tight. Sophie sucked in a happy little gasp. "You're a good boy," she said, as if she'd always known it. She moved closer by inches, careful not to crowd him. Then she sat on the sidewalk beside him, legs folded, hands in her lap. "I'm going to sit with you, okay? Mom says when someone is hurt, you sit with them so they don't feel alone." Thunder's head lifted a fraction and drifted toward her knee. The motion looked almost accidental, like he didn't trust himself to want comfort. He paused, then let his weight settle there. His muzzle was heavy and warm against her jeans. Sophie didn't flinch. She rested a hand behind his ear and stroked slowly. Ryan felt his throat tighten until it hurt. He had watched Thunder charge into dark warehouses, take down armed men, sniff out kids lost in swamps. He had never seen his partner look this emptied out. The sight of Sophie's small hand moving over matted fur cracked a dam inside him. He turned his face toward the street, pretending to scan the alley, but tears burned hot anyway. Ryan watched Sophie the way he watched a risky call, alert for danger, stunned by her calm. She had met Thunder once as a toddler when he visited their porch after shifts, yet she spoke as if she'd known him forever. She told him about her spelling test, the swing set at home, the ladybug she rescued from the pool. Her voice was a small shelter, and Thunder began to unclench. His shoulders dropped, his breathing eased. He even nudged her hand once, testing trust, then settled again. Ryan felt his badge turn heavy on his chest, not with pride, but with silent duty. A pickup rolled past and a man called, "You okay, officer?" Ryan lifted a thumb, voice still trapped. The man drove on, but the check felt like a warning bell. Someone could be watching. The chain might be bait. Ryan pushed the fear down. Sophie had chosen compassion, and Thunder was choosing it back. A woman with shopping bags slowed near them. "Honey, be careful," she said, eyeing the dog. "That one might bite." Sophie looked up, calm and serious. "He's not mean," she replied. "He's sad. There's a difference." The woman blinked, mouth opening, then closed it and walked on. Ryan almost laughed through his tears. Sophie returned her focus to Thunder. "What's your name?" she asked the dog. "The sign says police dog, but that's not a name. I think you need a real one." She tilted her head, thinking hard. "Maybe Thunder, if that's a strong name, like a storm that protects the trees." At the word, Thunder's ears moved forward. His eye sharpened. He knew it. The name wasn't chosen, it was remembered. "That's right," Ryan whispered, voice rough. "His name is Thunder." Sophie's face lit up like she had found a secret treasure. "I knew it." She leaned closer, letting her forehead touch his for a heartbeat, then pulled back so he wouldn't feel trapped. "Thunder, we're taking you home. I have a blanket with stars. You can sleep in my room if you want." Thunder breathed out again, and a quick, hesitant lick brushed her knuckles. Sophie giggled, wiping her hand on her dress like it was precious. "You like me," she said softly. "I like you too." Ryan knelt beside them, hands trembling with a mix of rage and relief. He placed his palm on Thunder's back. The dog didn't flinch this time. He pressed his head a little harder into Sophie's knee, as if anchoring himself to her kindness. Ryan felt the old bond pulsing, bruised but alive. "You chose us," Sophie told Thunder. "I saw your tail. You chose us." Ryan swallowed. "Yeah, baby, I saw." Thunder let out a low sound, not a growl, more like a memory loosening from his chest. Sophie kept stroking, steady as a lullaby. The sound faded into a sigh, and for a second the dog looked less like a survivor waiting for the next blow, and more like a family member remembering he belonged somewhere. Ryan glanced toward the alley again, half expecting a shadow to shift. He still didn't trust the quiet. But in that moment, the loudest thing in the world was a child's love knitting a broken hero back together strand by strand. If you ever believed a child's love can heal what adults broke, don't stop now. The worst moment is coming. Ryan had just started to loosen the clasp when Thunder's body gave a strange shudder. At first, it looked like a flinch from pain, the kind Ryan had seen 100 times during arrests. But the tremor didn't stop. It rolled through Thunder's ribs like a wave, and the dog's breathing turned shallow, quick, almost silent. His clear eye widened, then glassed over with sudden distance. "Thunder?" Ryan whispered, hand hovering. The shepherd tried to push up, as if pride wouldn't let him fall in front of them, but his front legs buckled. His chest hit the pavement with a dull thump. The chain rattled against the lamp-post. For half a second he lay still. Sophie's face drained of color. "Daddy!" she cried, voice splitting. "He's dying! He's dying!" Thunder convulsed again, weaker this time, then went limp, his head sliding off Sophie's knee onto the concrete. The tiny tail that had twitched moments ago stopped completely. Ryan's training snapped in like a reflex. He checked airway, pressed fingers to the dog's neck for a pulse, felt a faint flutter that scared him more than none at all. "Sweetheart, listen to me," he said, fast but gentle. "He's alive. We're getting help right now." Sophie was already sobbing, shaking hard enough that sprinkles fell from her hair. She grabbed Thunder's muzzle with both hands as if she could hold him to the world. "Thunder, please, stay. Please stay." Ryan unlatched the chain in one hard motion. The metal dropped with a clink. He slid his arms beneath Thunder's shoulders and hips. Even starved, Thunder weighed close to 90 pounds. Ryan lifted anyway, muscles screaming, adrenaline lending strength. The dog's body was terrifyingly limp, breath fluttering against Ryan's wrist. "Open the door, Soph," Ryan called, sprinting toward the cruiser parked at the curb. Sophie ran ahead, wiping tears with her sleeve. Her hands fumbled on the handle, then she yanked the back door open wide. Ryan laid Thunder across the back seat, careful of the injured shoulder, then climbed in beside him to steady his head while he slid the radio from his belt. "Central, this is Caldwell, emergency transport. K9 down, possible shock. I'm en route to Willow Creek Emergency Vet. I need them ready on arrival." His voice stayed calm only because he forced it. Static, then a dispatcher's startled reply. "Copy, Caldwell. Vet notified. Ida?" 7 minutes, Ryan said, already moving. He jumped into the driver's seat. Tires chirped as he pulled away from the curb. The golden street blurred into streaks. Ryan hit the siren once, then again, letting it scream through the quiet town. Cars scattered. His mind narrowed to distance, time, oxygen. In the back seat, Sophie knelt beside Thunder, cradling his head in her lap the way she did with her dolls. She didn't seem to notice the blood drying around his neck or the smell of infection. She only saw him slipping away. Her small hands stroked his cheek, then his ears, then his forehead, trying to wake him with touch. "Stay with me," she whispered over and over, breathy and urgent. "Please, stay with me, Thunder. I'm here. I'm right here." Thunder's chest rose in thin, uneven pulls. Once his jaw twitched like he was trying to respond. Sophie caught the tiniest movement and clung to it. "He heard me, Daddy. He heard me." "He did," Ryan said, glancing in the mirror. The words were true because he needed them to be. He took the fastest route, cutting through side streets, ignoring every instinct of safe driving that wasn't life or death. The vet clinic sat off the highway, a squat brick building with a small blue sign. Ryan saw it ahead and felt a surge of dread. 7 minutes could be too long for a dog missing food, water, sleep, maybe worse. Thunder let out a soft, ragged huff. His clear eye opened halfway, unfocused. Sophie leaned close. "It's okay. We're going to help you. You're going to come home. You can sleep in my star's blanket." Her voice cracked. "You can't leave. Not now." Ryan turned into the clinic lot on 2 wheels. He skidded to a stop by the entrance. Before he was fully parked, the front doors flew open, and a vet tech ran out with a gurney, followed by a woman in scrubs and gloves. "Bring him," the vet shouted. Ryan yanked the door open and lifted Thunder again, careful but fast. The dog's head lolled against his shoulder, breath barely there. Sophie hopped out and stayed close, one hand on Thunder's fur as if she was sharing her strength. They moved together to the gurney. The tech helped slide Thunder onto it, securing straps. "Pulse is weak," the vet said, already checking pupils and gums. "He's hypothermic and severely dehydrated. We're taking him inside now." Sophie's eyes went wide with terror. "Can I come?" Ryan knelt, gripping her shoulders. "You stay right here with me. They need room to work, but he can hear you, okay? Talk to him." She nodded fiercely, then leaned near Thunder's head as the gurney rolled away. "Thunder, I'm outside. Don't be scared. I'm waiting for you." Her voice chased him through the doors. Ryan stood frozen for a heartbeat, then hurried after them, Sophie's hand in his. The clinic swallowed them in bright white light and antiseptic smell. Machines beeped behind a curtain. Ryan felt useless for the first time in years. A tech stopped him at the treatment doorway. "Sir, you can't come past here." "I'm his handler," Ryan snapped, then softened when Sophie flinched. "Please." The vet looked up. Her eyes were sharp but kind. "We'll do everything we can," she said quietly. "Give us a moment." The curtain slid shut. The beeps grew faster. Sophie pressed her face into Ryan's uniform, smearing him with tears and sugar. Ryan wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight while his eyes stayed on the curtain, waiting for any sign that Thunder was still fighting. Around them, the clinic moved in a blur of purpose. A receptionist whispered into a phone. Another tech hurried past carrying warm towels and an IV bag that swung like a pendulum. Ryan caught fragments: organ failure risk, possible sedatives, old trauma, and his stomach clenched. He pictured Thunder alone in back rooms, chained, starved, maybe punished for remembering Ryan's voice. Anger sparked, but fear was sharper. He forced himself to breathe slow so Sophie could borrow his calm. She clutched his belt and stared at the curtain, lips moving in a shaky prayer from bedtime. Ryan lowered his mouth to her ear. "Talk to him again," he said. Sophie nodded and called Thunder's name, soft and steady, like a lighthouse through fog right now. "He has to live," Sophie whispered into his chest. "He has to. We just found him." Ryan kissed the top of her head, unable to promise what he didn't control. "He's a hero," he said, voice rough. "Heroes don't quit easy." They stood there in the waiting hall, father and daughter, listening to the frantic rhythm of machines and remembering a tail twitch on a sunny sidewalk, praying it wasn't the last one. The waiting room clock ticked too loud for such a small space. Ryan kept one arm around Sophie, while her other hand clutched the star-pattern blanket she had grabbed from the cruiser. Every few seconds she looked toward the treatment doors, as if staring hard enough could pull Thunder back through them. After what felt like an hour but was probably 10 minutes, the vet stepped out. She was in her 40s, hair tucked into a cap, sleeves speckled with dried blood. Her eyes moved from Ryan to Sophie, and her expression softened. "He's stable for the moment," she said, "but he's in very bad shape." Sophie took a half-step forward. "Is he going to die?" The vet crouched to Sophie's height. "We're doing everything we can to stop that. He's a strong dog. You helped him get here in time." Ryan's jaw tightened. "What happened to him, doctor?" She stood, pulling a tablet from her pocket. "I'm going to be blunt. This isn't the condition of a dog that was simply lost. He's suffering from prolonged, deliberate abuse." Ryan felt Sophie stiffen against his side. The vet scrolled through notes. "He has deep chain burns around his neck that match cheap links, not standard canine collars. There are rope-style restraint marks on both back legs, consistent with being tied in a standing position for long periods. His paw pads show repeated trauma like forced marches on gravel. The burns on his flank are chemical or electrical. His eye injury suggests repeated blunt strikes, and he is severely malnourished and dehydrated." Ryan's ears rang. "Months," he repeated, tasting rage. She nodded. "At least 3, maybe more. We also found old sedative punctures behind his ear. Someone kept him subdued." Sophie's voice trembled. "Why would somebody do that to him? He's good." Ryan knelt beside her. "Some people are sick, baby. None of this is his fault." The vet hesitated, then added, "There's more. When we cleaned the left shoulder, we found a patch where fur had been shaved repeatedly. The skin is scarred in a way that looks like someone tried to remove identifying ink." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "His service tattoo." "Exactly. Whoever had him wanted him untraceable." A cold clarity settled over Ryan. This wasn't cruelty from a random stranger. This was a method. "Can I see him?" Sophie asked. "One at a time, calm voices only," the vet said. They followed her into a dim room filled with beeps and the hush of oxygen. Thunder lay on a padded table, IV lines taped to his front leg, a warming blanket draped over his body. His chest rose in small, steady movements. Sophie stepped close, trembling, then placed her hand on his neck. Thunder's eye opened a sliver and found her. His tail made a faint tap under the blanket. "He knows. You," the vet murmured. Sophie smiled through tears. "Hi, Thunder, I'm here." Ryan stroked Thunder's head, and the dog leaned into his palm. Ryan bent closer, scanning the shaved shoulder. The skin was raw in a rectangular patch, but tucked beneath a ridge of scar tissue he noticed a metallic glint. "Hold on," he said. The vet stepped aside as Ryan carefully parted the fur. A small oval ID tag was wedged under the scar line, as if someone had tried to tear it off and the skin had grown over it. Ryan slid it free. The tag was scratched almost blank, but the last digits were still legible, 7 sota 4 ta 1 hora 9. Beside them, faint letters read WCK9. Ryan's stomach turned. "That's our precinct code." The vet's brows lifted. So he was definitely a working dog. "Yeah," Ryan said hoarsely, and someone tried hard to make him disappear. Sophie gripped his sleeve. "Does that mean they didn't want you to find him?" Ryan looked at her, then at Thunder. "It means they were scared of something he knows." The vet lowered her voice. "Officer, if you suspect a crime, I'm required to report this." "I will." "Please do," Ryan said. He pocketed the tag like evidence. He stepped into the hallway to call the only person at the precinct he trusted. His thumb hovered a second, Then he hit the dial. "Marcus, it's Ryan. I need you to listen fast," he said when his friend answered. "Rye, where are you? They said you left patrol." "I'm at Willow Creek Emergency Vet. Thunder is here." Silence, then a sharp inhale. "No way, how?" "Chained on Main Street with a dollar sign, starved, tortured. They tried to scrape off his tattoo. I found his hidden tag, scratched, but still showing our code." Marcus swore under his breath. "That file was sealed. I tried to peek last month and got flagged." "Flagged by who?" "Captain Harlan, maybe higher. Internal Affairs put an access lock on it. Only 3 logins allowed." Ryan felt his hands go cold. "Marcus, was there any transfer record? Any clinic invoice?" "Not that I could find. The transport log for that day was edited after the fact. The timestamps didn't line up. When I asked, the lieutenant told me to stop digging." Ryan stared at the floor, breathing through fire. "So this goes inside. It has to," Marcus said, voice tight. "Rye, be careful. If they did this to Thunder, they'll do worse to keep you quiet." Ryan glanced through the glass toward Sophie, who was sitting beside Thunder, whispering to him like a promise. They already crossed that line. "Tell me what you need." "I'm filing a cruelty report here. I want you to quietly pull every transport roster, every contracted vet list, anything tied to K9s in the last year. Don't use your login, and if you see Harlan moving, call me." "You got it, and Rye, I'm glad you found him." Ryan swallowed. "So am I." He hung up and stepped back into Thunder's room. Sophie looked up, searching his face. The vet watched him too. Ryan knelt beside his daughter. "He stays here tonight so they can keep him warm and hydrated." Sophie nodded, lip quivering. "Can I leave my blanket?" "We'll leave it," Ryan said. "He likes your stars." Thunder blinked at Sophie, slow but awake, and Ryan felt a promise settle in his bones. Someone had tried to erase this dog because Thunder was a witness. Maybe he had seen something during that routine stop. Maybe he had been loyal to the wrong truth. Either way, Ryan wasn't letting the story die in this clinic. He looked at the vet. "I'm bringing this into the department, but not through their front door." The vet gave a firm nod. "I'll document everything. Photos, lab work, timelines. If you need a statement, you'll have it." As they walked back toward the hall, Sophie squeezed his hand. "Daddy, will the bad people come back?" Ryan chose honesty without fear. "They might try," he said. "But we're not alone, and Thunder isn't either." Sophie leaned against him. "Because he's a hero." "Yeah," Ryan whispered, eyes on the closed treatment door. "And heroes deserve the truth." "They tried to silence a hero. If that makes your blood boil, you need to see how far this goes." Morning arrived without sleep. Ryan hadn't left the clinic. He'd dozed in a plastic chair with Sophie curled against his chest, her star blanket draped over both of them. Every time Thunder's monitors chirped, Ryan's eyes snapped open. The dog was still here, lungs steady, pulse stronger than the night before. When Sophie whispered his name, his tail made the faintest sweep under the warming sheet, as if her voice was the rope keeping him tied to life. By late morning, the vet let them sit with him again. Thunder's head was higher now, his clear eye more focused. He drank from a syringe, slow but willing, and when Sophie slid her finger under his chin, he leaned into it. The vet looked at Ryan. "His improvement spikes when your daughter's in the room. He eases. His heart rate steadies. Whatever he's been through, she's his safest signal." Ryan nodded. "She's not leaving his side." That afternoon, Ryan called Internal Affairs, but not through the desk line the captain monitored. He drove to a payphone outside a diner on Route 17, watched the parking lot twice, then dialed the direct number Marcus had texted him. When an agent answered, Ryan gave his badge number and said, "I'm reporting aggravated cruelty and obstruction connected to K9 Thunder Caldwell. I have a veterinary report, photos, and the dog himself. The department's original file is sealed. I need it opened." "Remain available," the agent said. "We're dispatching a team." 2 hours later, unmarked, sedans rolled into the clinic lot. 3 investigators stepped out, suits open, faces hard, with the kind of quiet fury that comes from seeing something you love betrayed. Ryan met them at the door with the scratched ID tag in a clear bag, the vet's written statement, and a thumb drive full of photos. Inside a small office, the lead investigator, Agent Lila Grant, logged into the department system using a state credential. A banner flashed, "Restricted File, K9 Thunder Transfer Incident." She clicked override. The seal broke with a simple password prompt that should never have existed. "Someone hid this behind a thin wall," she muttered. Records unfolded. Transport routes, clinic invoices, camera logs, signatures. One page showed Thunder's routine vet visit, routed to a private facility not on any official list. Another showed a secondary authorizing signature added 12 hours later. The name on that signature made Ryan's jaw lock. Captain Harlan. Grant zoomed on a timestamp. "This route was changed after your dog left the yard," she said. "He never went to the contracted clinic. He was diverted." She pulled up a traffic frame, the transport unit turning into an industrial park 40 miles away, a place with no veterinary services. A second vehicle followed, black SUV, plates blurred. Sophie, sitting nearby with crayons, looked up. "That's the car that was near Thunder yesterday," she said. Grant's team cross-checked names. Harlan's signature led to a pattern. 2 other K9 transfers in the last year, both filed as lost, both tied to the same off-book facility. One handler had resigned suddenly. The other had been reassigned after performance issues. Grant's mouth tightened. "This isn't a one-time cover-up. This is a pipeline." A younger investigator returned with another sheet. Captain Harlan co-signed a weapons evidence disposal last quarter. Missing rounds were noted. Then the note vanished. Ryan stared at the paper, pieces snapping together. If Thunder had witnessed theft or a handoff, he'd be a risk no one wanted alive. Grant lowered her voice. "Officer Caldwell, I'm opening a formal investigation today. You'll be protected, but Harlan isn't small time." Ryan didn't flinch. "He already tried to kill my partner. I'm done being afraid." Grant nodded. "Then we move now." They drove straight to precinct headquarters. Grant's badge cleared the front desk like a storm. They walked into Harlan's office without knocking. The captain was on a call, smiling. The smile died when he saw the suits. "Captain Harlan," Grant said, "you're suspended pending investigation. Surrender your weapon and access card." Harlan stood fast. "On what ground?" Grant set photos on his desk. Chain burns, shaved shoulder, the scratched tag. "Your signature rerouted his transport. We have video, toll data, and altered logs. Sit down." Officers gathered in the doorway, silent and stunned. Harlan's jaw worked. Then he placed his weapon on the desk, slow. Grant's team cuffed him and escorted him out. A ripple went through the hall, not cheers, just the heavy sound of people realizing a line had been crossed long ago. Back at the clinic, Grant visited Thunder's room before leaving. She watched Sophie read him a picture book, her voice soft and steady. Each page seemed to pull him farther from the edge. His breathing smoothed, his paws relaxed, and for a moment his ears lifted like they remembered duty. Grant said quietly to Ryan, "Whatever they did to break him, she's undoing it." Ryan looked at his daughter and felt something settle in his chest. "Then I'll undo the rest," he replied, no matter what. Ryan drove back to the clinic, heart racing with a mix of grief and relief. When he entered Thunder's room, Sophie was seated on the floor beside the table, humming the tune from yesterday. Thunder lifted his head at the sound. His tail tapped twice. "You did good, partner," Ryan whispered, resting his forehead near Thunder's. "I'm bringing you home soon. No more cages, no more lies." 2 days later, the vet cleared Thunder for discharge with strict instructions. Fluids twice a day, antibiotics, warm sleep, and 0 stress. Grant arranged patrols rotating past Ryan's home. Marcus brought over food and a stack of affidavits. "They're expanding the case," he said. "State wants every record." Ryan cared about one thing: the front porch and the dog bed Sophie had dragged from the closet, stuffing it with pillows. When they pulled into the driveway, Sophie opened the back door and whispered, "Welcome home, Thunder." The dog stepped down gently, legs shaky but determined. He paused, sniffed the yard, then looked at the swing set and the oak tree, as if mapping a new world. Sophie led him to the porch. The moment Thunder crossed the threshold, he sank onto the rug with a long sigh that sounded like surrender and victory at once. Claire knelt and cupped his face. She didn't ask questions. She just cried into his fur. Thunder licked her cheek, careful. The family gathered around him, not crowding, just being near. For the first time in months, the house felt whole. That night, Sophie slept on the floor beside Thunder's bed, her fingers resting on his paw. Ryan watched from the doorway until his own eyelids fell, then sat at the kitchen table and signed the first formal statement for internal affairs. At the bottom, he wrote one line in block letters: "I will see this through." The case wasn't over. It was opening like a trapdoor under the department, one file leading to another. Names rising higher than Ryan had ever expected. But the first step had been taken, and the strongest witness was already home, breathing steadily under a blanket of stars. Spring returned to Willow Creek like a quiet promise, kept. The backyard behind the Caldwell house, once too still without paw steps, now lived in easy motion from fence to porch. The air smelled of cut grass and rosemary from Claire's garden beds, and the late afternoon sun painted everything in honey tones. Ryan stood on the steps in a worn t-shirt, coffee warming his palms, watching the light slide across the lawn the way it used to before everything went dark. Out by the oak tree, Sophie darted in zigzags with a yellow tennis ball tucked under her arm, braids flying, cheeks sun-pinked from play. Thunder chased her, not limping, not trembling, not hiding, just running with clean strength and a grin shining in his eyes. "Catch me if you can," Sophie yelled, and Thunder gained on her with playful patience. She stopped, spun on her heel, and hurled the ball toward the fence. Thunder exploded after it, ears pinned back, paws thudding soft earth with the rhythm Ryan had missed more than he ever admitted. The dog scooped the ball, turned, and sprinted back, tail high, muscles rolling under a coat that had finally grown sleek again. Midway, he veered left as if he might keep his prize, and Sophie chased him, mock scolding, "Thunder, you sneaky boy, bring it here." Thunder dropped the ball at her sneakers and bowed low, inviting another round. She squealed, hugged his neck for a breath, then stood and wiped her nose on her sleeve like nothing in the world could ever scare her again. Ryan's chest swelled with a pride that tasted like relief. He had learned in the hardest way that healing wasn't a single day at a clinic or one arrest that fixed everything. It was months of slow meals and measured walks, nights when Thunder woke from nightmares and Sophie hummed the fear away. It was careful therapy with a K9 specialist, endless patience from Claire, and love that never asked for proof. At first, Thunder startled at raised voices, flinched at any clink of metal, and slept with one eye half open. Sophie met every setback with calm devotion. She read to him on the living room rug, fed him tiny bites from her hand, and sat beside his bed when storms shook the windows until his breathing slowed to match hers. Gradually, Thunder began to trust again. His ribs disappeared beneath healthy weight. The burrs of old wounds smoothed into pale scars. His cloudy eye cleared a little, not perfect, but bright enough to follow Sophie's every move. The first time he barked at the mail truck, Sophie danced in the hallway like she'd witnessed a miracle. The first time he carried his own bowl to the kitchen, Claire cried quietly at the sink. The first time he slept through the night without jerking awake, Ryan sat on the floor and listened to the steady breathing he thought he'd lost forever. Each small victory stacked on the last, until Thunder was no longer counting the minutes between hurts. He was counting the steps to the yard. The case moved forward too, heavy and slow, like a door that needed both hands to open. Captain Harlan was suspended, then charged. Internal Affairs uncovered a network that used off-book transfers to hide stolen evidence and intimidate anyone who got close. 2 more officers were arrested. A private kennel that doubled as a holding site was shut down. News vans parked outside the precinct. Statements were read in courtrooms that smelled of stale paper and truth. Ryan didn't celebrate the downfall. He let the courts do their work while he focused on home, on the dog who had survived, and on the little girl who had refused to leave him behind. One afternoon in early summer, a letter arrived from the State K-9 Association. It stated that Thunder's service record was restored, his disappearance reclassified as criminal abduction, and his honors reinstated. Ryan pinned the letter on the fridge next to Sophie's drawings. Thunder sniffed it once, then rested at Ryan's feet, as if he understood that his name was safe again. Sophie traced the gold seal with her finger and whispered, "You're official forever." Thunder answered with a soft huff that made her laugh. Back in the yard now, a breeze lifted the porch chimes. Thunder paused near the flower bed, nose deep in rosemary, then trotted back to Sophie, dropping the ball carefully into her hands. She scratched his chest and leaned her forehead against his. "You're my best friend," she whispered, thinking Ryan couldn't hear. Thunder's tail thumped once in answer, and he licked her chin, gentle and precise, the way he used to nudge Ryan after a good call. Ryan walked down the steps and joined them on the grass. Thunder looked up, then pressed his head into Ryan's hip in a wordless hello that still felt like a miracle. Ryan knelt and rubbed behind those ears, feeling the heat of life there. "Good work, partner," he murmured. Thunder sneezed in that goofy way he always did when praised, then trotted away to follow Sophie again, like the past was finally behind them. She tossed the ball toward the swing set. Thunder chased, slid to a stop, grabbed it, and spun back. Ryan caught a flash of the old training focus in the dog's posture. The muscle memory was still there, but now it was pointed at joy instead of threat. Sophie shouted directions just for play, pretending she was a sergeant. Left, right, sit. Thunder obeyed the first 2 out of habit, then looked up, tongue out, waiting for the real task. Sophie giggled and said, okay, just be a dog." Thunder bounced in a loose circle, dropped the ball at her feet, and bowed low for another throw. The sound of her laughter rolled across the yard like music. Claire stepped onto the porch with 2 glasses of lemonade. She met Ryan's eyes, and they shared the kind of look that only comes after surviving something together. There was a line of silver at her temples Ryan didn't remember from last year. There was a line of steel in his spine he hadn't known he owned. Neither of them spoke much about that first day on Main Street anymore, but they didn't need to. The past sat in their scars, and the future sat right here in their yard, bright, noisy, and honest. As the sun lowered, turning the lawn gold, Sophie plopped onto the grass, breathless, and Thunder sprawled beside her, panting happily. She rested her head on his side like it was the safest pillow in the world. Thunder's chest rose and fell under her cheek, steady and warm. Ryan stood over them with his hands on his hips, letting the image sink deep. A healed dog, a fearless girl, and a home that had survived the dark. His mind drifted to that first frozen moment on the sidewalk, the rusty lamppost, the cruel cardboard sign, the way Thunder had looked at him with terror and hope tangled together. The memory still tightened Ryan's jaw, but it no longer owned him. What owned him now was this scene, proof that cruelty could be answered with courage, and that love, even small love, could outlast power. Ryan's voice settled into the calm storyteller tone he used when he tucked Sophie in at night. He spoke as if the evening itself were listening, and as if everyone who had walked this road with them deserved to stand here too. They tried to break a hero. They failed because one little girl refused to walk away. If this story moved you even a little, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances, drop your city name below. I read every single comment. And turn on notifications because the next story will hit even harder. See you there.